Hello.
I had actually prepared an introduction, but no, you did a great job. No, I think you covered it all. But I did want to point out that you do projects all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, Portugal. Brazil.
Yeah, Portugal, Belgium, London, but also Mauritius, Ibiza, Mallorca, New York, LA, Mumbai, Dubai as well. So a little bit, not so much in South America, not yet in Australia, but in the Northern Hemisphere, a little bit everywhere, yeah.
So that gives you kind of a global perspective, certainly. But I think initially, let's just talk a little bit about your work. I mean, one of the things that I noticed, and it was alluded to, that the office is housed in a 1919 candy factory.
Yeah.
Your personal home is a historic home.
Yeah.
And then I also saw images of this beautiful 18th century chateau that you did in Brussels. And what struck me is, you know, your work is often described as very modern and contemporary, but there was just this really beautiful balance between preserving the original details, leaving some patina behind, and then incorporating very distinctive contemporary materials and lighting. And I feel like we're not very good at doing that in Los Angeles. We tend to like just tear it all down. So I kind of wanted to ask you how you honor the integrity of the historic spaces while simultaneously making them, you know, updated for modern living.
Yeah, I think growing up in Europe, we grew up around these buildings, so always visiting these kind of historical buildings, museums, palaces as well, like these chateaus, traveling as a kid also with my family. So you kind of learn a lot also from these buildings, and I respect those buildings immensely. And then I think we're lucky to start working in Antwerp and in Belgium, where there's quite a bit of these buildings that are now coming kind of up for sale, or like there's a generational transfer to new people kind of inheriting these buildings or buying these buildings. And there was a period where they were also demolished also in Belgium, but I think now they started to like preserve them and maybe sometimes focus too much on like keeping every little detail. And I think we try to find a good balance between making sure these houses or buildings can be remodeled so they can like survive another 50 years, another 100 years as in a different life as a private house. And it's always like investigating which elements are really the original parts, which are important to keep the soul of the house intact, but where can we change to make them really usable? Because some of like that chateau you mentioned, when we first stepped in there and when the client bought it, it looked like a museum, like completely lots of intricate ceiling moldings and wall panelings. But a lot of people didn't see how you could even live there because it was very heavy, very much dark wood and like enormous spaces, but not always the right ones, for example, or like a tiny kitchen and then a huge salon to receive people when it was still used as a chateau. And then you try to see how can we reconfigure the spaces to first get the flow right and like make some changes there. For example, that one, and there's some images coming in there. These clients, like they entertain a lot, but they like to cook in the space for their guests, while in in these historical homes, all the cooking was done in the basement or by staff in like more servant areas. So now you try to see how can we bring this in there without ruining the whole look of the wall paneling, and that's why we, for example, there we created this beautiful kitchen island, which is basically part of the whole entertainment area, and there's a kitchen cabinet which looks like a library cabinet, but then houses like hidden appliances and all kind of things like that. So it's very subtle, but just making sure that it can be used again and it can be lived in, because I think that's the way to preserve those. I mean, some you can of course keep as museums, but most of those you would hope people really enjoy them. And and that's
I think it's very difficult to do it well, and I think that
for sure, and also to make sure, like, because now people want all these contemporary technologies and comfort, and you want home automation, you want like nice smooth lighting, you want air conditioning. So to get that built into these homes, that's very much a challenge. So there's, before you come to the, let's say, the beautiful new items, there's a lot of behind the scenes work to make these homes ready for the next period. Yeah.
The devil is in the details, as they say.
Yeah.
So with that kind of historic perspective and having grown up and paid attention to kind of historical buildings and influences, can you talk about some architectural movements or design movements that have influenced you?
Oh, well, many, I think, but to name a few, maybe, going as far from Baroque to Art Deco, I think, like, for sure, like in the Baroque palaces, or like even, I vividly remember like visiting Versailles for the first time as a kid and seeing these kind of beautiful, beautiful buildings where there's rhythm, there's ornamentation, but there's also like very clear floor plans, very strict symmetrical floor plans. So you take a bit from everything, even though our work seems much more understated and not so much in the ornamentation, but still like you learn by visiting all these buildings. And Art Deco, for example, it's much more closely related maybe with our work, because there's this history of using beautiful materials, noble materials like marble, bronze, metals, and exotic wood veneers. And I think that's something that certainly we try to also do in our current work, in a way. And you see that in these Art Nouveau or Art Deco homes in Belgium or in France, but also here in the US. You see that in, for example, visiting Chrysler Building, Empire State Building, these beautiful lobbies where you have all these different elements coming together, and kind of the integration of architecture, art, furniture design, interior design, all coming together to a total project. I think that's definitely something that we try to do in our work as well, but in a kind of contemporary, maybe a little bit more understated way.
Yeah, because that leads kind of perfectly into the next area that I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, there's a real sense of kind of theatricality in your work. And I think that comes from the use of materials and the color. And so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about materials. What are some of the materials you keep coming back to, and how do they kind of tell the story of a project? Like, how do they contribute to the final reveal?
Yeah. I think we love to use very real materials, natural materials as well. Like we use a lot of marble. I think we're very much known for, but also wood. And I think the nice thing about why I keep coming back to marble or other types of natural stone or quartzite is like every slab is different, and there's like endless colors or endless designs even, and even within one kind of family of stone, you can still find a different block or a different slab that is surprising you and kind of makes you fall in love with a specific slab or a specific block that then our clients buy to use in their home. And it's also this kind of idea of having something unique, really, that is only used in that house or that little piece, because even though all the other slabs are used for other projects, but those, let's say 20, 50 slabs are only used for your house. And then you combine them also with different kinds of wood species. And it's this kind of combination that makes it unique, because, there's only a limited amount of materials, let's say, but by combining them, you create the endless array of different materials. And it's also a way of making every project very different. We try to, I think there's a certain signature perhaps, but the materiality is quite wide, and this allows every project to be very distinct, or it could go very much into blue tones, green tones, more neutral tones, and that's what keeps it fresh, I think, which relates also to the whole idea of, like she mentioned, like the couture architecture aspect of making very personal design. So we try to find out what clients love, which materials or even colors they kind of gravitate towards, and how can we use this in their project to make this very extremely personal, actually. And that's the beauty of natural materials, I think. And also they're very timeless, and they kind of age with a beautiful patina and become only better after a while. And for me also, you never get bored of seeing like a natural stone detail or just the touch, but also like visually you notice different areas in a certain piece.
And there's also, I think you use a lot of wood and there's a lot of custom millwork, which is obviously a real luxury, right?
Yeah, well, here it is.
Yeah.
I think in the US, that's a very luxurious idea of having like completely custom home. But I think that's also perhaps like our European heritage, that there's a very strong tradition of craftsmanship across all kind of levels of homes. So it's in Belgium, it's not really like a super luxurious idea to have a custom kitchen or have a custom millwork detail. There's like lots of small family companies doing beautiful millwork, doing custom cabinetry, custom kitchens. And of course, we take it quite all the way and going like custom dressing closets, custom cabinetry all the way through the house. And that's something, yeah, we really enjoy doing. And some of our houses even, it's like there's not really a boundary between the walls and the millwork. Like the millwork becomes the wall paneling, the kitchen just kind of continue, and you can kind of trace the lines from your kitchen all the way into your bathroom and into your dressing closet. And that's something you would see as well in a lot of these Art Deco homes. And that kind of is always inspiring to me. Because then it creates really this complete project, right?
So it's kind of like the Art Deco philosophy almost more than the aesthetic.
Yeah, it's more like the idea of using craftsmanship and making something unique and bringing all these materials together and creating for each project a certain specific design language that you can continue. And the handles are custom made, like all these little things are made for a client. And that's something we enjoy bringing to our projects.
And so part of that design language obviously is color. And I'm always curious about, how people choose palettes for projects. And I know that often it's driven by the client, and I know certain designers also have like signature colors that they return to again and again.
Yeah.
And can you talk about your use of color?
Yeah, I think it's also something that is definitely like developing, and like some of our earlier projects were maybe a bit more neutral or more black and white, and then color kind of started to become stronger in our work. Also thanks to Patricia, my wife, who's much more color oriented than me, I think. But also just trying to, you develop your style. You want to create more complex, more layered designs, and then kind of allowing these personalities of the clients also to shine through the color. And I think a lot of people, both in Europe, but also I think here, like are initially drawn towards very bright atmospheres, very bright colors, and we always try to push them towards a bit more darkness or a bit more color, or like very moody spaces, very deep spaces, and to create a contrast. And because I think it's in the contrast that a house becomes exciting, and you have this element of surprise of stepping into completely red room, or you have your living room is maybe a bit more neutral, but then you go into the basement and suddenly there's a completely emerald green entertainment space. And I think that's really cool, and that's always pushing a little bit, and you have some clients who are much more open to it. We just did a penthouse for a techno DJ, and she really was immediately on board with like the full black experience, with black natural stone on the walls, black granite floors, and very deep, nearly clubby, And then you have a few light elements, like an island in a light onyx, or a bathroom where just the sink is in a light green onyx, but all the walls are black, and then it's this kind of contrast, which for me is exciting. And
sounds very dramatic.
It's very dramatic, yeah. Yeah.
I should also point out that you work with your life and business partner, Patricia Goyens.
Yeah.
And how do you guys work together? What is the balance of how you divide and conquer?
Yeah, that's like, so I started the firm like a bit more than 10 years ago, and initially she has a background more in fashion, in communications, but then she moved into architectural photography, and she started, shooting all our projects, and then kind of gradually became much more involved, and I think initially fighting a little bit to really join the firm full time, but we also she had to admit that our skills are so complementary that it just almost didn't make sense not to join forces, and now we work super closely, and she runs the FF&E department, but also apart from that does all our imagery and the photos, and essentially just we run the office together as partners, and so she's been a very big impact also, maybe also on that more colorful, more textures and more fabrics.
And you two are wanderers. You like to travel a lot, right?
We like to travel, and that's also, I think, what works really well together is that by traveling so much, you create this kind of a shared library of images,
like
of places, and then you can spar very quickly and to kind of ping pong ideas about an atmosphere you want to create, and that's something very rewarding and yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking earlier. They've done a project in Mumbai, and you've just secured another.
We're doing quite a bit, in Mumbai,
And where are some of the places that you've traveled that really had impact on you and your work?
Well, I think we travel a lot for the projects we do, and then always in the summer we try to, because during the year we work quite a lot. I think in a lot of people in this kind of field, it's never ending, right? But then in the summer we always try to take a break to do like a purely personal trip to relax, but also to get inspired. Mm-hmm. And we like to, I think we find a lot of inspiration outside of the areas where we usually would be, and a lot, we go often to South America as well, Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, these areas, and then Asia as well, Japan, China, India as well. And I think there's just endless inspiration again there, like when we go in China, for example, like the Forbidden City, it's such a strong location, such a strong building to visit, and also there you discover all these new details or new elements or like a certain color which inspires you, and then it becomes something you try to take to a next project, or do like a red lacquered room, and then it's sometimes it's very clear that was the inspiration. Sometimes it could be years after, but you're reminded of a certain place there. Or this summer we were in Mexico and I visited this kind of small contemporary temple completely in a black lava stone, and it's just so inspiring to see these materials, and then it's something that you try to consciously or unconsciously try to use in your work in a different context.
So it's important to have all that kind of input.
So many images and as much as possible, right?
Yeah. I know experiential input has more impact, at least for me, than kind of just looking at pictures, right?
Yeah.
Smells and sights, and you can see the craftspeople.
Yeah, definitely.
So, we're here to celebrate the launch of your collaboration with Zinc Textile. Can you tell us the origin story and how that came about?
So that's so we launched it now, but actually that started like about 3.5 years ago, I think. And Frederick, who's here as well, is the American CEO of Romo. Emily is the owner in London. And they reached out to us to see if we were interested in doing a collaboration, designing a fabrics collection. And initially we often get this kind of requests, but we were so busy doing our architecture project and interior design project. So initially we were sometimes skeptical, but then we did meetings with them, and we kind of hit it off very immediately. And it's also something that Patricia was also on board immediately because of the fashion and the textile kind of link and the color aspect of it. And so about 3 years ago, I think we started working on really developing the collection, always with the idea to launch it like beginning of 2026. And it's been a super interesting learning experience for me as well, because I wasn't such a expert maybe in textures or in the textile qualities, and we had to kind of translate or find a way to translate our Dieter Van Velpen architect's DNA into fabrics collection, and how can this look like? How can this merge with the Zinc DNA? So Zinc is actually one of the sub-brands of the Romo group, and that's where our collection is launched now.
I mean, I noticed as I was looking at at some of the fabrics, some of the names actually come from your travels. I think there's
all of them.
Polanco, Ibrera.
They're all places we've been to, and that kind of have a memory to it. And some of the names are closely related to the inspiration for this fabric. Others are just different places we've been to.
Because I know a big part of your practice, your interior architecture practice, is customized furniture. So how is having these textiles as part of your toolkit? I mean, I would imagine that really kind of expanded kind of the possibilities both in design, color, texture.
Yeah, definitely, like both for the furniture pieces, but also like we do a lot of these, you know, wall coverings, breakfast banquets, all these kind of elements. And then otherwise you would, you know, obviously there's incredible fabrics already out there, but sometimes you're still thinking, oh, we should have loved to have this one or do something like this. And now it's just another element of kind of making these homes even more personal, and maybe bringing something that didn't exist in terms of the patterns, in terms of the designs or the colors, that now we created. And I think from a point of what we would love to use in our project, but obviously that we hope that other designers will like to use. And that's also what makes this really exciting, because when you do an architecture project or an interior design project, you're kind of in control of the whole image. But now we kind of created something that we shared with the world, and now everybody's going to do his own thing with it. And I think that's really.
Do you have a problem with that?
No, I love it.
To let go?
No, I love it. But it's exciting and curious. I'm curious to see those first projects, and because you have zero control or idea of what it's going to be like, right? And so that's cool. And we launched that in Paris in January, and then now now we're here in LA in the US. So really cool.
Have you used the fabrics in some projects yet?
Well, so they're just on the market now.
Okay.
So we actually only use them for now I mean, there was already designers specifying them, but just very recently. But we use them now in two very personal projects, which we used also for the photo shoots of the collection, which is in our office, in the candy factory, and in our private house, because we were just, a bit more than a year ago or like 2 years ago, we bought a new house that we also remodeled. And so that was an ideal moment to then bring in some of these fabrics into custom bed headboard, breakfast banquet in the kitchen. We have a lot of vintage furniture pieces as well that we then, like very fun finds and some very, inexpensive pieces, but then we had them reupholstered in these fabrics, and then suddenly they become very, very fun and very vibrant and new again. So that's something, that's one of the projects where they're already used.
I encourage all of you, if you can access that. Where did that piece run about your house? Al Decoration or?
Al Decoration.
Yeah, to look it up, because their house is really quite extraordinary. It's really cool.
A very colorful project, I think, for us. Some people probably were surprised to see it, but it's...
because when you look at these images of this very kind of like streamlined, like modern, contemporary, the house really, it is a surprise, but it's a very good surprise. So we're here in Los Angeles, so I think we have to talk about LA a little bit. You're currently working on a project here.
We finished one. I mean, there's some images in there. So we finished one house 2 years ago in Bel Air, which was our first in LA, and now we're working on one in Blue Way in the Bird Streets in Hollywood, with collaboration with the same architect, so with Saota from South Africa, which we really admire, and they actually brought us on to the second project. We did the first project together, and then now they brought us on the second one. And we love doing projects in LA. It's just...
Well, since you have this kind of global perspective on design, like when you think about Los Angeles, what does LA contribute to the design conversation? What is happening here, either historically or currently, that is exciting to you about LA, or how you see LA positioned within like kind of the greater design community?
Well, I think definitely also like historically, or let's say from, you know, mid-century was such an important place here, I think, and all these mid-century homes, and some of my favorite homes of all time are in LA. Like
So
these,
which ones?
like Sheets Goldstein from Lautner, for example.
Can anybody get him in? He'd like to go.
Love to visit, but also like you know, Nutra houses, all these kind of from the case study houses and upward. Like they're so iconic for me. So there's this really like this kind of a lineage of iconic homes, I feel, that are very cinematic, and I don't know if that's because there's always been this concentration, I think, of talent from fashion, art, film, music, obviously, and probably some of these people that are in entertainment, or maybe also these kind of larger-than-life characters who like to live in a special home, right? And I think that's something that if I compare to maybe especially comparing to Belgium, for example, I think people are much more understated, much more quiet, maybe. Which there's other qualities there, but here I think people feel more like let's live a little, let's entertain, let's host, and create a house that is suited for that, and maybe thinking less like, oh, let's make a house that I can sell easily in 10 years that everybody will love, but just doing your own thing. That's definitely something.
That too, but yeah.
But still, well, some probably, but still, there are some really wild homes here that you would never see in Belgium, I think.
No, absolutely.
So that's super inspiring, and then I think definitely like the whole kind of pioneered the whole indoor-outdoor living thing. I feel with the case study homes and kind of blurring the boundaries between indoor and outdoor, and obviously we don't have the weather, so we can't really do that. But still, like people want to have this idea of indoor-outdoor living everywhere in the world, and kind of finding ways to give them that in a way is something, we try to do. But you do it very well, much better. And like, for example, like in the first house we did in Bel Air, I don't know the pictures there, like just the open basically walls which completely disappear, like, you know, like 15 meters, like what is that, 40 feet openings without any columns. I never saw that in Europe, you know, and here, like, that's important for them, so they will spend the money to create these kind of openings, let all the windows pocket into the walls, and then you really have this kind of blurring indoor-outdoor, and you don't have that if the windows are a bit smaller, and it's much more enclosed, I think, in Europe. So that's some things you can only do here.
Yeah, this is true. We have the climate for that.
Yeah. I mean, the climate is in some other places as well, but still they didn't develop it as well, I think, as you did here. And now probably they're all looking at it and want to have that same kind of feeling.
Yeah. Well, I think now might be the time for some questions. Does anybody have any questions? Is there anything else you want to talk about?
You're the interviewer.
Well, I mean, I'd like to talk about tropical modernism. I mean, in India, for example, Sri Lanka, Jeffrey Bawa, like if you're talking about kind of indoor-outdoor, I think I love that stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Me too. No, I love that, but also I like the kind of the contrast. Also, like you have these projects that you mentioned, or Bawa, or also like the Le Corbusier work in India, for example, which we got to visit a few years ago in Chandigarh, and there's something which they do there, and which they do also very well in Brazil or in Mexico, is like this contrast of the very rough textures and the very elegant. And that's something I think in our work as well, and also in our own office, which is in a very rough concrete factory building. You have this, this duality and the contrast that is very strong, and that people are open to it. And for example, also like in Mexico City or in Sao Paulo, which we visited, like you have very, very high-end restaurants which are in very rough spaces, but then like the table is very elegant, you know, but the wall is kind of not really crumbling down because it could be brand new in concrete, but really rough textures. There's rough steel, and that's something that in Belgium, for example, they don't dare to do. If there's a Michelin restaurant, it's very clean, it's very chic, very French maybe. And in those countries, they're much more open to experiment with these kind of very rough textures. And that's the same in India. If you see those big homes and, like the Cannes projects there in Asia or the Corbusier projects, it's very much about that, like elegant details versus the big movements, the sculptural shapes, and they like to live very large as well in India and do these kind of triple height living rooms, which we're not allowed to do in Belgium. We can never do this kind of in new homes. It's very strict, so it's very limited to a bit lower homes, I think, which gives a very linear architecture. And in some of these places, or in Brazil, in Mexico, or in Asia, like you mean in India, it's so sculptural. There's no limit to what you can build, which is inspiring for us, and which makes me want to design a house in Brazil or Mexico someday as well, right?
Definitely. Yeah. But you guys also do hospitality, right?
We do a few. It's I always say, like, I want to do 80% just private homes, custom homes for people, and then 20% are specials. And it could be, sometimes it's a client that we did a house for and then they want to do a restaurant, or it's like a special chef that comes to us and wants to do something. But we're not really like typical hospitality designers. But so if there's special element to it, then yeah, we love to do it. And if they want to, most of those that come to us wanted something atypical, and they come to us because we're not really the typical hospitality designers, I think. And then we can bring maybe a kind of residential touch or a kind of bespoke touch that they want.
And where are you guys traveling this summer? Did you say that already?
The next summer?
Yeah.
We don't know. Yeah, we're very last minute always, but we might go to China again.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, to go there and discover new places, go a bit deeper maybe, and discover new things. We're always.
Yeah, wanderlust is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. I think we're good. Are we good? Thank you so much, Dieter.
Thank you, Stacie. Thank you.